Xbox have officially brought us their largest and last sale of this entire year, and the countdown sale ongoing right now is stuffed full of massive games at ridiculously low price points. I've actually had to narrow down this list to just 40 games, and even then it was a pretty hard decision and I had to leave out some incredible games. That is certainly how good the deals are this time around, so I do apologise for growing your ever so large backlogs. Remember though, I am giving away a free Xbox game as well on these sales videos every single week, but I'm also currently giving away one game per day in the run up to Christmas as part of my whole 12 Days of Xbox Nation series. All you have to do is just comment below and check back tomorrow to essentially see if you've won, as I am uploading on a daily basis. Congratulations to last week's sales video winner, and of course yesterday's 12 Days winner. If you'd just both hit me up on our awesome Discord server, I will get those games right over to you. Now with that, let's delve into the huge games you can grab right now in this countdown sale. My favourite FPS on Xbox to this day just has to be Hell Let Loose, and although I totally understand this is one game that is certainly not for everyone, it still has a very dedicated fan base. That's because it's a realistic and hardcore multiplayer only FPS which has 100 players fighting against each other within the fronts of World War II. To put it simply, one bullet is enough to kill you here, so stuff like planning, teamwork and taking it slowly is the best method to win games. Communication is also the ultimate name of the game here, and is always highly entertaining when you hear squad commanders communicating or just hearing your teammates blaring out Barbie Girl while getting mowed down by an MG42. It's great, and for 75% off is definitely worth grabbing, especially as it also leaves Xbox Game Pass at the end of this December. Next up, we have an excellent indie that's known as Dredge. This is easily one of my top 10 indie games of the last decade, and you need to play it today if you do get the chance. This Lovecraftian fishing adventure actually combines chilling horror elements with addictive exploration and resource management. By day, you'll be exploring that mysterious archipelago, upgrading your boat, and of course hauling in some deep sea catches, but by night, the horrors lurking beneath those waves do awaken, forcing you to navigate dangerous waters and unravel an ominous mystery. The mix of relaxing daytime gameplay and intense night terrors makes for such a gripping, one-of-a-kind experience that you can't get anywhere else. If there is one indie game that you need to try out this year, it really is Dredge, and again it's now down to just under 10 quid for this week. It's safe to say that many of us were really waiting a long time for Dave the Diver to finally make an appearance on Xbox, and right now you can certainly grab it with a whopping 45% off. If you haven't somehow played Dave the Diver before, it's almost impossible really for my words to do the game's justice. The core loop sees you diving for fish during the day, and then helping the chef out at your sushi joint to essentially make some more money. But that's just barely scratching the surface of this entire game. The diver also battles sea monsters, runs errands for a secret underwater civilization, and eventually manages his own farm. The game is simply not happy just being an RPG and a management sim, and you'll find multiple surprises thrown your way. It can get absolutely batshit insane, and that's why I heavily recommend it in this sale, especially as it runs great as well on the Xbox ROG Ally. With Control Resonant coming out in 2026, I highly recommend that you dive into Control as soon as possible. You're also in luck with this sale, as the Ultimate Edition, which is what I'm highlighting, is down by a massive 90% off, and it not only gives you the campaign for that £3.50, but also two incredible DLCs that many haven't actually played before. In this one though, if you're unfamiliar, you will step into the role of Jesse Fadden, the new director of the Federal Bureau of Control, an agency which is dealing with bizarre and otherworldly phenomena. The game is packed with lots of eerie, shifting architecture, and its combat lets you wield telekinetic powers alongside traditional weapons. Whether that's hurling objects at enemies with your mind or just unraveling the hidden truths of the Bureau, Control is such an unforgettable ride that constantly keeps you on your toes. Sea of Stars is like a massive warm hug, especially if you grew up with the classic RPGs in the 90s. The game is more modern these days, but still retro at the very same time, with combat that's very turn-based while being very active, letting you time attacks and blocks for extra depth, sort of what we see with Clair Obscur. It's very smooth, satisfying, and never outstays its welcome, and it will hook you even if you're not usually into these sorts of experiences. What I really loved about my time with this one though was the world, as it's colourful and inviting, but with just enough mystery to keep it compelling. The writing's incredibly sharp, the music is so beautiful, and the pacing is just so wonderfully executed. I found myself smiling way more than I expected in this one, and it's a JRPG that is so highly rated by many within the gaming community. Although this one is certainly not on Xbox Game Pass anymore, it's down to 18 quid, and that's a worthy price for this cracking gem. Throw a ton of Star Wars characters onto a battlefield, and you've pretty much already got the promise of a really popular game. Make it then multiplayer, and things can really only improve from there. But if you somehow toss in some steep microtransactions or pay-to-win mechanics, like you did EA, you'll certainly lose your entire player base. That really was the mistake that EA learned quite a few years ago now with Battlefront 2, the Star Wars game with the most tumultuous launch that I've ever seen. Though the game is mechanically sound these days, and players really enjoy the gameplay and large-scale battles, EA nearly did tank this one with costly loot boxes that unlock some advantageous perks. Once EA removed those microtransactions though, and DICE started actually churning out some pretty decent content, Battlefield 2 was mostly saved, and to this day it's one of the best multiplayer experiences you can play right now. Honestly, it's definitely worth playing if you get a chance, and for the low price that it's asking for in this week's sale, it's certainly worth picking up. What began as a Skyrim mod became one of the most compelling narrative games that I've played in recent years. The Forgotten City is a first-person time loop mystery that's set in a hidden Roman city where if one person sins, everyone dies. You're then sort of stuck in this repeating cycle, uncovering different clues and ultimately solving puzzles and making very difficult moral decisions that do change the fate of the entire city. The dialogue in this one of course does play a major role, as you come to expect, as every character has their own secrets, and uncovering the truth does require some sort of logical thinking alongside empathy and clever use of your time travel mechanics. The writing is very smart and philosophical, exploring themes of stuff like justice, ethics, and fate. With multiple endings and branching paths, it rewards exploration and so much replayability. It's now 80% off, making it just £5, and it's a fantastic story-driven experience that really stands apart from typical action-heavy titles. Avowed is on sale this week, and bear in mind the game actually launched earlier this 2025, this 50% off saving is totally worth it. This one though is set in the richly detailed world of Eora, and it's a first-person RPG from the absolute legends of this genre, known as Obsidian. It really delivered such an immersive mix of exploration, magic, and meaningful choice, and although it's certainly not the best Obsidian RPG I've ever played, it still did a pretty decent job overall. You will be delving into stuff like navigating political factions, searching ruins, and just shaping your story through deep conversation trees and reactive quests. Combat was a real massive surprise for me though, as it's such an improvement to the old Obsidian games, and it's just so obvious that id Software really helped them in a positive way. With companions that develop over time and environments that reward your exploration, Avowed is an incredible fantasy world that's definitely worth losing yourself in. Next up, we have one that actually totally flew under the radar for a lot of people out there, but LEGO Bricktales is one of the most thoughtful and relaxing puzzle games I've played in recent years. Instead of smashing things up like you see in usual LEGO games, which is still pretty fun, this one actually focuses on a creative construction element instead, and it kind of lets you solve environmental puzzles by actually building with your bricks. It's got a sort of charming diorama style presentation, a really wholesome story behind it, and some genuinely clever level design. If you've ever loved LEGO as a kid, or still do like me, then this is a peaceful and satisfying gem that deserves your attention. At just under £4, it's an absolute no-brainer, and I can guarantee you won't ever regret picking this one up. One game that I truly adore to this day is Hogwarts Legacy, and if you're a fan of the Wizarding World as much as me, then I can confirm that this game is a bloody gem. This is an open world action RPG that's set in the world first introduced within the Harry Potter books. You'll then basically embark on a journey through familiar and new locations as you explore and discover magical beasts, customize your character and craft potions, master spellcasting, upgrade talents, and so much more, and that's only scratching the surface. For me, the real highlight is just how well crafted this entire world is, and it's staggering how great Hogwarts looks and feels, as it's so blimmin' accurate. I have seen it climb to one of the most popular games on Xbox and Game Pass this year, and it's easy to understand why once you boot it up for the very first time. Another little indie that really goes heavily under the radar is called King of the Seas, and this one actually delivers a swashbuckling action RPG adventure that is set in a procedurally generated pirate world that's brimming with danger, treasure, and high seas combat. In this one, you are basically being framed for your father's murder, and you'll be then fighting to reclaim your name and uncover the truth. With any sort of RPG, you can of course customize your ship with various weapons, skills, and so much more, and it's those mechanics that make this such a great experience. You also have stuff like ship-to-ship battles, treasure hunting, and even trade routes, and the game offers such a satisfying loop of risk and reward if you so choose to go down that route. It's very rare to see some very good pirate games these days, and for just £2 is a great time to raise the sails and command your own pirate empire. Gears of War Reloaded actually landed earlier back in August, and this was such a strange remaster that many of us fans of the franchise really just couldn't be bothered with. It was easy to see that this was really more of a money move to bring PlayStation fans into this franchise, but it somewhat didn't actually sell great over there either. I have actually tried it now since it's released, and you know what? They actually did a pretty decent job here, and visually it does look great and even runs smoothly on my Xbox ROG Ally X. I will say, if you haven't played Gears, then this is obviously the best version for you to play right now, as the first 3 games are always going to be infinitely better than 4 and 5. The multiplayer is also a pretty decent offering, and it's still nice seeing all of those active lobbies, and it's a genuine laugh with the right people. I do recommend it at 50% off this week if you're certainly gagging for some Gears of War, but I do reckon it might go a little bit lower by mid-2026 if you want to wait for it. Ghostrunner 2 is actually slashing its price by 80%, dropping it down to just £7, and that's a no-brainer pickup at this price point. This one is a high-speed action platformer that takes the cyberpunk thrill of the original and then cranks it up a notch quite considerably with bigger environments, new mechanics, and an even deeper storyline. Players in this one will have to wall run, dash, and slash their way through enemies, relying on lightning-fast reflexes just to survive. I will say that this game does a brilliant job of featuring challenging gameplay, but makes it genuinely rewarding, and that's all alongside the great atmospheric visuals and a killer synthwave soundtrack. Honestly, Ghostrunner 2 is a feast for both your eyes and ears, and if you're looking for an adrenaline rush with a bit of challenge, then this deal is really hard to beat. If you are looking for an absolutely brilliant indie gem that could top off the list for this year's best indies on Xbox, then you need to check it out as soon as possible. Viewfinder is a game that really challenges perception, redefines its reality, and then reshapes the world around you with an instant camera. The good news is that this is a single player game that offers hours of interesting and fun experiences, and that's all whilst uncovering the mysteries left behind here. If you take a look at the game's Steam page or even the Xbox Store page since its release, Viewfinder is just so widely praised by the entire community, as it does such a great job of making a puzzle experience actually insanely interesting. If you are wanting to dive in, then you can grab it for just £7 this week, and that is a stunning price point. Amnesia The Bunker really took survival horror back to its primal roots with a ton of darkness, isolation, and just fear of what's hunting you. This one though is set in the World War I bunker, and you're trapped underground with a monster that listens, learns, and stalks your every move. In essence, only light and sound become your only tools, and even then they will betray you. The tension in this one is looking pretty relentless, and all of this is powered by clever procedural generation that ensures that no 2 playthroughs feel identical. Personally, I can never bring myself to play this one for more than 30 minutes, because I really did get freaked out, and I'm really not a horror fan. I will say that this one is shorter than the classic Amnesia games of old, but far more intense as every minute counts. It is just £3.14 after an 85% discount, and it's one of the best modern horror experiences for this price point. One of the best arcade racing games which took the gaming world by storm towards the start of October was Sonic Racing Crossworlds. I was actually very surprised to see it perform so well, but when you make a sort of Mario Kart-like experience containing a plethora of awesome characters, such as SpongeBob, then you're instantly going to have a hit on your hands. There is a lot of content here as well, alongside a pretty decent multiplayer suite, and they're also adding much more into next year. I've only actually played this one briefly due to other reviews coming in priority over this one, but from what I've played, I really understand that hype. If you want a Mario Kart inspired game at 50% off, then this one will always be my go-to recommendation. I definitely seem to have a knack these days of just providing you with some great games that will be a good supplement, especially if you've recently finished some of the bigger hitter titles. One that I really wanted to highlight this week though was Shadow Warrior 3 Definitive Edition. I won't lie, this is in no way a huge experience, and definitely don't expect the same amount of polish with the likes of Doom, but if you want a fun romp with some great controls and shooting, and also a pretty wacky story, then you'll definitely want to pick this one up. This one lets you embark on an improbable mission to recapture an ancient dragon that Lo Wang unwittingly released from its eternal prison. You'll then be tearing your way through a fractured land infested with demons, using a dynamic arsenal of blades, bullets, and whatever else you can get your hands on. At a low price of just under £7, this is an insanely fun game, even though it's slightly on the shorter side. As a sequel, Hellblade 2 had a lot to live up to, and oh boy, it really didn't disappoint me. Nearly every aspect of the first game was really improved on here, be it the visuals or the new combo-based combat system. From its photorealistic graphics, environmental puzzles, and plenty of lore and collectibles for us to uncover, this title makes for a perfect single-player experience, especially if you don't have a lot of time these days. This sequel was not only highly anticipated because the first game was that blimmin' good, but it was also the game that Xbox chose to highlight alongside the unveiling of the Xbox Series X back in 2019. I will say that although the gameplay and sort of the combat loop gave the game a fairly mixed reception overall, this is still an Xbox game that you need to check out, especially with 75% off for this week. Now let's delve into something on the darker side as well with Metal Hellsinger, a shooter that really throws tradition out of the window. Instead of spraying bullets freely, every reload, shot and dodge is stronger when it lands on the beat of a thunderous metal soundtrack. You will be stepping into the role of the Unknown, a vengeful demon that's carving a path through hell to reclaim her stolen voice. The precision rhythm though really matters more than the perfect aim, rewarding you with massive multipliers as combat syncs with the music. The result is blisteringly fast, chaotic and insanely satisfying. Add in the striking visuals and energy and you really get a bold FPS hybrid that really delivers on all fronts. At just £6.24, it's the lowest price ever right now, and this one is such an easy recommendation. Currently 67% off and sitting at just £8.24, Conscript really is a love letter to the golden age of survival horror, but what really made this one stand out though was its setting. You're basically deep in the trenches of World War I, scavenging for supplies and solving cryptic puzzles, and that's all whilst fighting off both human enemies and your own dread. The fixed camera angle alongside the tight inventory and slow burn tension are straight from the Resident Evil playbook of old, and it works beautifully well here. I really admire how confidently this game captures that sense of isolation and desperation, with every sound, footstep and encounter designed to keep you uneasy. If you're a fan of gritty horror and want something a little more unique in terms of its atmosphere, then this one is a solid pick. If you enjoyed Deliver Us the Moon, its sequel known as Deliver Us Mars builds on that narrative-driven, atmospheric sci-fi formula, and I'm really hoping we get to see another Deliver Us adventure in the near future. In this one though, you take on the role of Kathy Johansson, an astronaut on a desperate mission to recover stolen colony ships and secure humanity's survival. The gameplay mixes climbing, puzzle solving and also exploration, but that's all alongside the cinematic storytelling and just the haunting landscapes of Mars, which are beautiful and isolating. The motion capture work gives the characters a real sort of emotional depth, and I'm actually really surprised how well it's been implemented for such a small indie development team. Normally this one is priced a lot higher, but this one's now down to £6.24, and for that price you just really can't beat it. Even though Battlefield 6 launched back in October now, it was actually the best-selling FPS of this entire year, and they still managed to actually bring us an insane 46% discount in this week's countdown sale, and I cannot understate how good this game is for that price point. For £38, you're getting one of the best multiplayer shooters on the market right now, and I've easily put in over 200 hours myself since its launch, and I'm a big Battlefield stan. Battlefield Studios really nailed the destruction here, the fantastic gunplay, and just a grounded experience that we've been craving for so long now. Yes, the campaign is pretty average, but it's still decent, and the seasonal updates are slightly lacking for sure at time to time, but for this price it's such an easy package to recommend. You will love this one, and I'm still shocked they put it this low in its price already this year. This next bundle is easily one of the best narrative shooter trilogies that's ever been made. The Metro Saga bundle includes the likes of Metro 2033 Redux, Last Light Redux and Metro Exodus, 3 games that take you from claustrophobic underground tunnels to the hauntingly beautiful post-apocalyptic Russian wilderness. These games do such a fantastic job though of balancing the tense survival mechanics with very deep storytelling and world building, and that's why so many fell in love with this franchise. Right now the bundle is just £5, which is a staggering 90% off for 3 critically acclaimed games. I actually recommended this bundle back in the summer sale for £7.50, and the fact it's now less is actually pretty mind-boggling. Whether you're new to the series or wanting to revisit it, this is the definitive way to experience the Metro franchise. From the creators of Mutant Year Zero came the Miasma Chronicles, and it's a tactical RPG that's set in a post-apocalyptic America smothered by a mysterious substance called the miasma. You play as Elvis and his robotic brother, scavenging towns, uncovering secrets, and then blasting mutants in tense turn-based combat. The world is striking, part ruined beauty, part eerie quiet, and the mix of stealth and tactics keeps every battle really sharp. The writing's actually pretty witty as well, the world building is utterly top-notch, and the pacing is surprisingly cinematic. It is a slower burn than your usual RPGs, so do take note of that, but it rewards your patience with story and strategy that really click perfectly. At £9 after 70% off, Miasma Chronicles is a clever, thoughtful take on the apocalypse. It's tactical chaos with real heart. Thanks to a rather large 80% discount, I would highly recommend you pick up Call of the Sea. It is a first-person puzzle adventure game that's set in the 1930s, following Nora as she searches for her missing husband on a mysterious island in the South Pacific. The world is lush, almost kind of dreamlike as well, with clues tucked into every corner, and puzzles that do feel rather organic compared to forced. It is much more than just a game about solving riddles as you might come to expect. Instead, you'll be uncovering a deeply personal story about love, discovery and sacrifice. This game delivers such an emotional narrative wrapped in mystery, and if you enjoy games like Myst or even Firewatch, this is a must-add to your Xbox collection. The Riftbreaker was a really bold fusion of both base building, tower defense, and twin stick shooting, and somehow it works bloody brilliantly. In this one, you essentially control an elite scientist or commander in a powerful mech suit, and then you're sent to a distant planet to build a portal for human colonization. That means harvesting resources, setting up your defenses, and surviving massive alien assaults that grow way more intense the longer you're there. It is a strategy experience that's chaotic and packed with customization options for both your mech and your base. What really did stand out to me though is the sense of scale, as you feel both powerful and constantly under pressure. It's now 60% off, and that's such strong value for a game that combines depth, replayability, and just explosive action in a way that's really hard to put down. In my honest opinion, the Crew Motorfest is Ubisoft's best racing effort to this day, and is a huge step up from its predecessors and a real contender for the open world gaming crown. This one though is set in a stylized Hawaiian island and mixes both cars, boats and planes into a fluid festival format, and it does let you take on themed events, challenges and cooperative stunts. What really won me over about this one though is just how fun it feels when you're not racing. Stuff like exploration, car cultural playlist and multiplayer are all handled pretty well here, and the constant free updates are also pretty good as well. At £14, it's a fantastic entry point for arcade racing fans, especially if you want something that sort of mixes variety with visual punch, and is a good grab especially if you like the sort of Forza Horizon franchise. RoadCraft is a massively popular simulator that has you taking control of many different construction vehicles in the wake of massive natural disasters. It has been widely praised by the community as a good evolution of that SnowRunner formula, as it basically upped the ante when it comes to the size and implications of every single vehicle. Essentially, that gameplay loop will still consist of you having to go out, clear debris, repair roads and bridges, and even restore some essential infrastructure. I've actually played this game for a few hours myself, and whilst I did enjoy it, the controls certainly takes some getting used to. Anywho, if you're wanting a realistic challenge solo or with your friends in co-op mode, RoadCraft will definitely be worth diving into today, and for £15.50 is very good value. Now, a game that was originally brought to us by Google Stadia, as they actually funded a game which I've actually put quite a lot of time into, is Orcs Must Die 3. This one is a tower defense game like you've never seen before, as there's loads of orcs trying to cause mayhem and ultimately destroy your base. This game has a tremendous scale and brings some pretty spectacular moments with hundreds of orcs on the screen at one time. You can get to play this one in solo or in two-player co-op, with a massive arsenal of different traps and weapons at your disposal, and it can get pretty insane in the later rounds when there's hundreds of orcs on your screen at one time. If you're a fan of either tower defense games or even third-person shooters, then this one will immediately grab you for just £5 this week. For players craving a more grounded and tactical shooter in the same vein as Hell Let Loose or Ready or Not, then let me introduce you to Insurgency Sandstorm, and it's an absolute gem. This was actually on Xbox Game Pass, but it did leave a few months ago now, which absolutely sucked. The game delivers intense team-based firefights with an emphasis on realism, so no stuff like hit markers, there's a very limited HUD, and brutal time to kill that makes every encounter feel very high stakes, such as Hell Let Loose. Whether you're defending objectives or coordinating attacks, communication and precision are really key. This one also does support both PvP and cooperative PvE, which is great, and the weapons here feel so weighty and authentic. Currently, it's now down to its lowest price ever at just £10.50, and that's a very strong pickup for fans of mil-sim intensity. Some games out there don't rush you, and Far Changing Tides is certainly one of those. In this one, you guide a lone traveller across a drowned world using a strange evolving vehicle, and it kind of shifts from a sort of ship to a submarine as the journey unfolds. There's no dialogue and no combat in this one, it's just gentle environmental puzzles, subtle storytelling, and a constant hum of machinery as you keep everything running. Each new area feels melancholic rather than dangerous, with weather and ruins that quietly hint at what was lost. It's a more sort of calm and reflective and surprisingly emotional journey, such as Hurdling, which is on Xbox Game Pass, which was actually made by the same devs here, and for £3.74 it's ultimately one of the best slow-paced experiences, and it's so beautiful in how it presents it all. Atlas really didn't play it safe with Metaphor ReFantazio last year, and it even came close to grabbing a Game of the Year award. This is a full fantasy epic that's built on political tension, social fear, and identity. It's not just another RPG skin swap, but it's just great to see. You'll be exploring fractured kingdoms while navigating elections, power struggles, and so much more. Combat blends turn-based depth with faster overworld encounters, keeping momentum high without losing strategy. The archetype system also constantly reshapes your party, encouraging experimentation rather than locking you into singular roles. Visually though, this game is pretty striking, as you could probably see. It's very unique and has a bold UI, alongside all of those dramatic animations, alongside a soundtrack that carries some real weight here. £30 isn't a cheap experience by any means, but this one does feel premium through and through, and it really shows why Atlas are held in such high regard. Bright colours, sarcastic humour, and a world that begs to be poked, and you've got Journey to the Savage Planet, as it thrives on that curiosity. In this one, you're dropped onto an alien planet as an expendable employee as part of the Kindred aerospace technology system, and you're tasked with scanning wildlife, upgrading your gear, and then just slowly unlocking some new movement abilities, like you kind of expect in a Metroidvania. Exploration is the real reward here though, as you'll be grappling across gaps, sliding downhill, jet boosting into hidden caves, and then discovering some pretty wild and weird creatures that usually don't appreciate your attention. The jokes are deliberately corporate and silly, but beneath is a really tight Metroidvania style loop that always gives you something new to chase. At £5, it's fantastic value, is light-hearted, creative, and just perfectly paced for a weekend adventure. There is no light really doesn't explain itself, instead it actually throws you into darkness and then expects you to survive. This one though is a harsh top-down action RPG where combat is fast, heavy, and unforgiving. Enemies really hit hard here, weapons feel weighty, and every fight demands your commitments. The pixel art is pretty striking, packed with grim religious imagery and unsettling symbolism that gives the world a sort of distinct identity. Storytelling is more fragmented though, revealed through exploration rather than exposition, which is a strange take indeed, and only kind of deepens the atmosphere of the entire game. It's not a comfortable game at all, it's not really meant to be, and for just £4.50 it's a really intense moody experience that's best suited for players who enjoy that challenge. Arc Raiders has proved to be one of the most popular games of this entire year, and the player counts still seem to be rising even though the game's now arrived about a couple of months ago now. Embark really smashed this one out of the park with this extraction shooter, and that loop of entering different locations, fighting off the Ark and other players, all whilst trying to get your loot is just so insanely addictive. I know some people who have put over 200 hours on this one with ease, and is still gaining so much momentum with the cracking updates that have already been added. We even have a winter event which is going on in the moment, which is really good fun, and visually the game overall is just an absolute masterclass. Even though 20% is not a very large discount, it is still worth taking advantage of it, because £25 is an incredible price for this game. They're also offering 1,000 in-game coins, which are about $10 worth of content, so it's definitely worth grabbing it, and also grabbing that entire holiday package if you can. If stuff like medieval combat is more your jam and you liked Chivalry 2, but you got fed up with the lack of support lately from the devs, then Mordhau is a very good alternative. This is first-person melee at its most technical, and I will warn you, timing, footwork, and weapon angles matter more than Chivalry, and it's got a much larger skill ceiling. As you expect, swords will clash, shields shatter, and mistakes are punished instantly. Battles will range though from chaotic castle sieges to smaller duels, where skill gaps became painfully obvious, and is a good variety right off the bat. There's also a really surprising sense of humour here, and there were plenty of times I was practically crying from what I experienced, and is very similar in community-wise to something like Holdfast. For £4.79, the value here is outstanding, and although it's not the most populated still, it's definitely worth experiencing in its own right. As a bit of an interesting one, Dear Villagers brought us their high-speed open-world action game known as Star Overdrive back in June, and it was utterly fantastic. It has actually been out for quite a while now to some rave reviews, with many calling it Zelda, but with a hoverboard. As mentioned, you will traverse the world on a hoverboard, gaining tricks to boost your speed, and there's also various abilities and powers to use alongside leveraging physics to maximize your capabilities. From doing a little bit more research as well, there does seem to be a combat presence here, although it's certainly not the pinnacle of the entire experience. It's more about exploring that gorgeous open world. For £21 is the best price yet, and I think that's totally worth it right now. At £1.60, thanks to a whopping 90% off, we have a real hidden gem that I want to highlight today, especially if you love choice-driven RPGs. The Last Oricru Final Cut puts you in a sci-fi fantasy world caught in a civil war, where every decision has real impact on the factions around you. The combat is more sort of a blend of melee and magic with a Souls-like flavour, but what sets it apart is how your choices matter. The Final Cut version of course polishes the overall experience with improved systems and visuals, however it isn't the prettiest game and there's certainly a few bugs here and there. Even so, it's definitely worth grabbing at just that price point, even if it's just to experience the branching narrative paths. Just don't go expecting a masterpiece here, as it's quite rough around the edges. Arma Reforger is a very interesting one, and it's still kind of hard to grasp why it's so popular amongst the gaming community. I did actually try this one out within its demo stages, and it just really didn't click with me personally. However, I do know many within our community that have had this on their wish lists, and it's now down to just £24, which is the lowest price yet. I do know that this one is built around realism, patience, and teamwork. It has some really large-scale maps, authentic weapon handling, and also limited information, which really forces players to communicate, plan, and adapt. I know the modding scene absolutely makes this game even better, and from watching videos from creators like Jack Frags, it seems like it can get quite intense and hilarious from time to time. This is only the second time it's on sale during the entirety of this year, and it's definitely worth grabbing if it's been on your wish list for quite some while. What game are you looking to pick up in this countdown sale? I would be keen to hear the bargains that you took advantage of, and do hit that like button if you found this video helpful. I will be bringing out another video on this sale rather soon, but covering deals that are under $5, so make sure to subscribe down below so don't miss out. I also want to give a very big shout out as well to our channel members for your continued support lately, and if you want access to videos early, exclusive emotes and so much more, then do click that join button down below, as it really helps me as well and does keep the lights on. If you do want to check out some more of my awesome Xbox content here on the channel though, why don't you check out the video on screen now. I recently covered some of the best RPGs that are coming to Xbox and Game Pass in 2026, and there's quite a few big games here you definitely won't want to miss.